Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the more survivalists, and in this case talking about the Russian-Ukraine war that's ongoing right now. I'd like to talk about some of the things you're seeing on the media, some of the things you're not seeing on the media, and some of the things that the media is obviously disregarding completely and just creating a false sense of expectation, I guess, or misinformation. Anyway, let's get to it. Now, you're probably aware that there's a pretty intense conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Now, what a lot of people apparently don't know is that the war already started with Ukraine and Russia. This goes back to 2014 when Russia invaded Ukraine. I'm not discovering anything new. This is literally Russia-Ukraine war from 2014. So it's kind of recent. I remember quite well when they invaded Ukraine, how they filmed them going across the border, the little green men crossing into Ukraine, and well, that's when the war actually started. So this idea that is Russia going to be invading, Russia already invaded Ukraine in 2014, and they're still there. At that point, they invaded some of the eastern territory. They took over Crimea. This was all Russia. It was all Russia at one point, but in more recent history, this was all Ukraine. So from the moment that Ukraine became its own country, this is the map of Ukraine, right? This is Ukraine as it should be. Really, this is, if we're going to be respecting the borders of our recent history and not crossing over and stealing other countries' land, this is the way it should be. Now, having said that, Russia does not like this very much. It all used to belong to them not that long ago. That is not a valid point, at least the way I see it. Just because you once used to own a specific territory, if we all do that, we could all be in constant war with everyone all the damn time, because you would have some prehistoric claim to something, or you just take it by force. So what happened basically here was that once they lost their puppet, this was since the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia has held control over a lot of these satellite states through puppets. For example, the Ukrainian president Viktor Yanukovych, he was kicked out of the country 2014, and this is the point in which things started changing in the relationship between Russia and Ukraine. It used to be that you had this border, and this was respected as long as Russia had their president puppet, kind of like they do with Belarus and how they do in some of these, or how they used to do in some of these other parts. Now, the thing is, one of the things that Russia does not like is that more and more of these are changing their minds. They're changing their what they would like to see. For example, this is a map of the countries that are within the European Union, right? These are EU countries. And if you look around here, you see, of course, you see Switzerland, not part of the European Union. You see UK, no longer part of the European Union. Now, you see this little part right here, which is behind the lines of the European Union countries. What is that? That is Russia. That is the Kaliningrad Oblast, which is a territory of Russia. It's one of these enclaves of Russia behind the lines of the countries that are no longer affiliated to them, but actually affiliated and part of the European Union. Of course, Vladimir Putin does not like that, especially when he sees that countries are falling out of favor and out of sympathy for the Soviet Union and everything it represents. And you know what, guys? The reality, if you've ever met some people from Ukraine or talk, they don't like the idea of communism, of socialism, of being under the Soviet Union influence. Poland would be one of the countries that suffered this greatly. Ukraine suffered it terribly during Holodomor. Massacre, starvation of millions of people in Ukraine in the hands of these damn communists. So they don't like the idea of going back under the umbrella, under the influence of Russia, and I absolutely understand that. So as of right now, they lost enough of it. But from that moment on, the thing about Russia not liking to have a country that may or may not join NATO. We were talking about this with Matt Bracken the other day. Personally, I think that's a damn excuse. That is, the thing that clearly made a big difference was this. 2014, they lose their puppet president, Viktor Yanukovych. He flies over directly back to Putin in Russia when he's kicked out of the country. That says it all. The guy flies back to Russia directly. From that moment on, they say, okay, we're going to be taking back our territory. We're going to be invading and taking, and they took it. They took the Crimean Peninsula, goes back into, and the international community mostly said, well, okay, keep it, you know. I guess that for any Ukrainian that is proud of his nation, it was not as cool. It's like, well, we take back Alaska. It used to be ours once, right? So yeah, give it back to us, and Russia takes over Alaska. I doubt many Americans would be happy with that. As it stands right now, they do own, I mean, they do control this, all this area. The part that is Donetsk, you know, the conflicts that were there. They supposedly created the Free Republic of Donetsk, which is just, you know, again, one of these puppet names by Russia just as to take control. But you have these guys crossing borders, and basically they're taking over this. Now, are they going to be rolling even further? Let's talk about that now. Well, yeah, it could well be. Why? Because there's really not a lot saying otherwise. What I mean by this is, does Vladimir Putin believe firmly in, you know, he's an old school Soviet Union believer, and he believes all of this should be in the hands of Russia? Yes. Is he upset that he no longer controls these places through puppets of his own, pretending to have sovereign nations right next to him? Yes, he's obviously upset about that. That's why he invaded right after they kicked they kicked his guy out of the country. Okay, why is it that Ukrainians don't want to have Russian puppets in their governments? Because they look around, they see their neighbors, they see like Poland. We could be Poland as well. Poland is doing damn nice. Why wouldn't we want to be like Poland? We have a very large, beautiful country. We can have it all without having the damn Russians on our neck. So they see all the, you know, the Western type of society, and that's where they are leaning towards, away from Russia, more towards the West. And this is why Russia is definitely not in favor of that. But on another level, you have a situation in which, after 2 years of the ongoing health crisis that we all know about and YouTube does not allow us to discuss, it's kind of fading away. People are kind of fed up of the bullshit and looking around as, really, you're going to be continuing with this more and more? And we've recently had protests in different countries. So that is kind of fading away in terms of how much people give a damn. And then you also have that U.S. has come out of a very embarrassing loss, maybe the worst ever in U.S. history, in Afghanistan. And not only is it extremely embarrassing being kicked out of the country you've been supposedly making huge progress over 20 years by people in sandals, in AK-47s, and taking all your cool gear. Not only that, but you need more military contracts. You do not mess with those military contracts. The last president that tried to do that ended up with a bullet in his head. We all know who that is. So when it's money that we're looking at, then yes, this is one of those, you know, there's something else to keep people scared, and this is basically a way in which you're going to be justifying all those military contracts. It's not just guns, bullets, and missiles and planes. It is paper for the offices in all the areas of the government. It's office supplies, it's clothing, it's food, it's absolutely everything. Money being funneled with a damn vacuum cleaner out of your pockets straight into the elite of the world that is really managing all of this. So this works for Putin very well as well, because he is a believer in this being his for taking. This also works very well politically for Vladimir Putin, because he gets more and more support. He is extremely popular in his own country, and he just increase the area of the nation. Why wouldn't he be? He's just annexing parts of neighboring countries into his own. Of course he's popular. If you watch some of the Russian TV in YouTube, and I suggest you do, because it is there. YouTube is very cool with letting dictators have their own channels. They're not cool with free people thinking. You know, that's YouTube for us these days. But YouTube allows Russian TV, and if you watch some of the videos, they don't even have much of an excuse as to why they're doing this. We are invading because we don't like it. I mean, the idea, again, we were talking about how a lot of these areas are used to be part of the Soviet Union. These are places in which people are culturally very Russian as well. Even though, again, this is still a sovereign nation. Ukraine, it is, by all accounts, a sovereign nation. It's not. I mean, this is like saying that Florida or California should go back to Mexico because a lot of Mexicans live there, right? We have millions of Mexicans live. The excuse that Vladimir Putin came up at a point was we are crossing to the border so as to defend the Russians in Ukraine. This is like Mexico crossing the border and saying, yeah, we're defending our countrymen in your country. You know, that's kind of, it just doesn't fly much. It's just an excuse as to take over. But going back to the interest, there's the economic interest of this is going to be making a lot of money for the same old people that are making money from all other crises that usually they create themselves. And this is one of the crises that they have no interest in stopping. I mean, if the entire world, if the United States, if all of the European countries came together and said, if you put one single foot across that border, we're going to be bombing you to hell, Vladimir Putin would not dare do this. But because he knows that this is working in their interest as well, he says, of course, we'll go along with this. We'll make this charade of a good old Joe saying, well, if you invade a little bit, that's not that much of a big deal. It's not as bad. But don't invade a lot. This kind of sad old man talking like that. But this is why, yes, this is very likely to continue. Why wouldn't it? It's going to be making money for the same people that benefit from this. It's also working in terms of the Great Reset 2030 prediction from Davos. This is not one of these conspiracy theories. It's no longer a theory when it's actually said out in the open. When they make the prediction of you'll own nothing and be happy. When they make the prediction much to this point of things are bad, people are hurting, and everything is awful, and we're suffering as a world, as a species, and this is all because of gender inequality and not enough tolerance with gays and homosexuals, and this is all because of the environment, that we're being bad with the environment. You're using plastic bags, you bastard. That's why Russia's invading Ukraine. That's kind of what they want you to believe. So the idea of the worse it is, the better it is, which is one of the very sad phrases from some of the awful politicians in Argentina, cuanto peor mejor. The worse it is, the better it is. This is part of the Great Reset. Literally out of their own mouths. We're going to be suffering, things are going to be bad, and this is why people are going to be more inclined to accept a new world order, a new world. Again, words that used to be conspiracy theory, and now these same people from the Davos people, the World Economic Forum people, these guys are openly saying it. In Australia TV, they say it even in the news, the New World Order. So the more chaos there is, the more fear there is, the more fear of a nuclear war blowing us all to pieces, the more likely people are going to be giving up their freedoms even more. Okay, I want to present my passport when I go to have a beer? Okay, here you go, sir. Here are my papers. I have to be poor because of the environment, because of Greta Thunberg, because of the plastic bags, and because of the sea turtles. Okay, I'll be even poorer than before, and I'll suffer even more. I have to eat no longer meat. I have to eat soybean burgers because of the environment. This is all my fault. Okay, this is the way in which they brainwash you. This is the way in which they form the social engineering aspect of having, and I see it every day. People are damn stupid. People don't think much for themselves. People don't want to think much for themselves. It is hard. Being a critical thinker is not easy, and people don't like doing things that are difficult. That's one of the universal laws we go by. People in general are pretty awful in terms of how much they appreciate what they have in regards to freedom. They will gladly give it away. I explained this in previous videos. People just do not want to have any responsibilities. They want to be little children with someone looking after them, with a chieftain, a Vladimir Putin, a dictator, or someone that you thought you did your civil duty. You voted for this stupid old man that is just a puppet from the elite. Okay, but you did your part. You voted for the guy that's going to be saving the environment and the blue whale and and all of this nonsense. it's at the end of the day, it's the same thing. You have someone over you that is ruling, and you're happy with that. It takes some extreme, horrible living conditions for people to snap and say, we're not taking it anymore. Look at how people live in places like North Korea. You will live like that if everyone around you does, everyone around you accepts it. You're seeing it right now. When you have these things that used to be stuff that was only worthy of horrible movies where there's a dystopian government running things and everyone falls in line with that. That's what people literally have done all over the world. People just took it. So, guys, how is this going to be messing with your life even more? Depends on where you live, I guess, to a point. But no matter where you live, there's going to be a few things that you're going to be suffering through this. This is all going to be used as a great excuse as to take even more money from you into the pockets of the elites. You're going to be financing all of this bullshit that you'll see going on. And it's going to be voted, it's going to be approved by the people that you supposedly put in office, and that means you're going to be even poorer than before. I mean, some people will do a little bit better than others. If you're smart, maybe, and if you have the means, you may end up benefiting greatly from this, like the elite did with these last couple of years, doubling their wealth while everyone else pretty much suffered. So, you're going to be seeing those prices go up a lot. Food, energy, it's probably going to be shortages of energy in certain parts of Europe. The colder it is, probably the more expensive it's going to be getting for you. Maybe you're going to be doing without it quite a bit. Are you going to be seeing Russians shooting it out with Ukrainians in your backyard? Depends on where you live. Likely not, unless you're in eastern Ukraine, probably not. But this is it. The things that you have to keep in mind: prices are going to be going up. You're going to be having less stuff. You're going to be having less freedom because of the now, I mean, we had the excuse these last couple of years. Now the excuse for you being poorer than before and less free than before is going to be this war that, it's kind of settled. Unfortunately, for people in eastern Ukraine, they're pretty screwed. Maybe for the entire Ukraine, they're pretty screwed. The only thing I'm in doubt about, to some extent, is this. The Kaliningrad Oblast, where we have the people in Poland. Now, the people in Poland, they're not Ukrainians. The people in Poland are ready to beat, shoot, and destroy every single Russian that sets foot across this border. They are not messing around. Pretty cool people, Poland, Polish people. So they've been preparing. The society is very well armed, and they've been training a lot to fight against this horrible threat that they've been facing and knowing about since World War II, basically. So this is not likely. Putin is not stupid. He knows that if he pokes this, he's going to be getting his arm bitten off. But in terms of poor Ukraine over there, yeah, I think he's doing what he knows he can do. That's going to be all for now, folks. If you like the kind of content that I have here, check the rest of the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and you have my books available following the links below. Take care.